I guess this is the last we'll see of the Mississippi King. Au contraire, mon capitaine. He's back! For Zelda month, actually. This is November, of course. And, in this episode, we're actually going to continue our quest here at the Desert Colossus, where it's very hot, unlike where I am right now. Because it's actually starting to get kinda chilly where I live. I mean, it's not, like, ridiculously bad or anything, but still, it's noticeable at least. The joke is that apparently Southerners can't handle the cold. I know someone who's from the north who has a harder time handling cold than I have. But anyway, here's our first Gold Skulltula, because yes, I am still going for 100%. And actually, I think we're pretty close to the end of the game. This is not going to be the last video, obviously. That's a ways off. I guess since we're here, I may as well talk about a few things. Like, at this point, I'm done with the Zelda videos. No, I mean, the Mega Man videos. And, as for any one-off LPs, I still haven't really decided. But I probably want to finish this game first, so I'll try to do that. And I don't think I'll be able to finish this by Zelda month, but I intend to at least get to the final few videos in this month. This temple, by the way, the Spirit Temple, which I guess we can do some of, but none as an adult at the moment. But anyway, this temple is really neat because, well, I don't want to spoil anything. I guess I'll have to go into that more in depth later, so I don't know why I even brought it up at this point, but still, we've been making some pretty good progress, actually. And the question with this series is, where am I going next? And actually, I think what I'll do, I'll try to focus on Sonic Mania next. Because yes, though I have made fun of that series a number of times, I'll have to cover it at some point. My goal is to get to Sonic Mania before Clement does. I haven't really recorded any footage for that yet, of course, but it is still something that I am strongly considering. But this game comes first, okay? This and Final Fantasy VI, which I apologize for the awful sound quality in the last two episodes of Final Fantasy VI. Really, the only reason I'm keeping them uploaded is because they're legitimately blind. Like, I can't just re-record it and still pass it off as blind. But unfortunately, the audio quality ended up bad because I didn't bother testing the audio setup. You see, this is why you want to test your audio setup before you use it, kids! And you want to test everything before you use it. I did that with my capture card before I even started LPing. But, yeah, that's one thing that I feel I should have talked about, is that my early videos on Ocarina of Time, I've actually kind of grown to dislike them quite a bit, actually. Although, hopefully, I think by the end I will have become much better at the craft. Because, you know, I have more inside jokes, running jokes, and, running gags. Gags that are standing still, and gags that are upside down. One of the things I love about the series I should go over, by the way, is that it actually does use a lot of anachronisms, things that are, like, out of place in their time period. that's one of the things that I think makes the series very enjoyable, because it makes for some very interesting moments when you have, like, a series with medieval knights and one game features robots. And that's not even a joke, that there is actually a game in this series that features robots. Albeit ancient ones from, like, technologically more advanced at time. I don't really think that happens as much as before. Actually, there is some basis for that, because it's like the Romans and the Greeks had some fairly sophisticated technology. It's not like modern technology or anything like that, but it was still actually more advanced in some ways than some of the civilizations that came after them. And this went off topic. Why am I discussing Romans and Greeks? This is weird. Anyway, here's another Gold Skulltula found in Gerudo Valley. It's only available at night, and I think only available in the past. I'm pretty sure it's only available in the past, but I could be wrong about that. But anyway, what we're going to do next is a show-off. Well, not show-off, I'm just gonna catch a bug here. And why am I doing that? Well, y'all will soon see. But now we get to show off our new song, the Requiem of Spirit, which I should have talked about earlier. It's a very neat song, and one of my favorites in the game, actually. It just sounds fittingly grave for the setting, for its location, and the point that it shows up in the game. I mean, I haven't really introduced myself properly, but this is the Mississippi King, who's, finally, after, like, how many minutes, welcoming y'all back to another episode of Ocarina of Time. And in the last episode, we found our way to the Desert Colossus, and also got Nayru's love, and got a few other things along the way, and that's pretty much it. And in this episode, of course, we're about to start on the Spirit Temple. Of course, I already got a few Gold Skulltulas, but now that we're on the topic of the Spirit Temple, I guess I should finally explain what makes it so interesting, since we're now here as a kid and able to progress. Basically, what makes this temple so interesting is that you actually do half of it as a kid, and the other half as an adult. That is pretty unusual in the Zelda series. Like, that's really neat. Imagine if in A Link to the Past, like, you did half of a dungeon in the Dark World and the other half in the Light World. That's not really something you see at all, and so this game really explores the themes of the duality of time, and it explores how unprepared and relatively defenseless the youth are. I mean, kids, in comparison to adults. And it also deals with, like, how you can grow to become more responsible and wield your power more efficiently, use it better. It also ties into, like, how you initially put responsibility on other people because of your lack of power and experience as a youth, but then grow to become stronger and gain the ability and the responsibility to handle your own issues. And it's a very relatable theme, I find. It's one of the many reasons why I think this game is so amazing, and why I think it has an edge over most other entries in the series. Well, all of the other entries in the series, if you ask me, since this is my favorite, as I've said before, on numerous occasions. Although one thing that this game has not got going for it over its sequels is the sword combat. It's admittedly kind of bare bones in this game. It's not particularly fantastic. It gets the job done, but nothing more. And the same can be said about Majora's Mask for the same reason, because it's the same combat system. But after Majora's Mask, the sword combat gets noticeably more interesting. With, like, the Wind Waker, it actually introduced a button that allows you to... Basically, the A button in that game gives you the ability to, like, dodge enemy attacks and counter them. Like, A can serve as a counter-attack button. And while I'm on that, like, I just generally think the controls of future Zelda games are superior, even though this game's controls are perfectly serviceable even today. And with regards to sword combat, one of the things that I like about the Wind Waker is that it also introduced a new type of spin attack. And with the Twilight Princess, I think the sword combat was improved even further, because with that, you had, like, a number of special moves. And another improvement is that, like, you have to actually activate a lot of the moves themselves instead of just, like, pressing the A button at a specific time. Well, I'm not really sure how it is in the GameCube version. I've only really played the Wii version. And that's one thing that I find interesting, is that over time, modern games have sort of tended to become more automated in their movement. And that's one thing that really bothers me, is that, like, in order to pull off cool maneuvers, like, you look at older games from, like, the 2000s and whatnot, and you'll find that they tend to use a lot of automated control. No, I'm getting mixed up here. Can't seem to speak right today. But games from that time used a lot of less automated controls. You had to actually press buttons in order to do something. Like, you couldn't just, like, hold forward and, like, leap off walls and just, like, head up and climb everything and whatnot. And you'd have to, like, actually hold some buttons down and whatnot. And so, like, they require you to, like, put in a lot more effort into actually doing each of your actions, and that's one of the things that I do love more about 2000s games over modern games, because, like, that means that, like, your actions feel a lot more intentional. Like, you actually have to do things, and so each move is calculated, and it feels like you have to actually mean what you're doing, and make sure that you don't make any mistakes. Like, here's a good example. Like, in Shadow of the Colossus, you have a climbing mechanic. So, you can actually climb things. It's a major aspect of the game, actually. And you can, like, hold down a button in order to maintain your grip. And you actually have a grip gauge which limits how long you can keep that button held down. And you can also hold down another button to leap, and the more you hold it down, the greater your leap is. Now if you compare that to, like, the climbing mechanic in the Uncharted series, and yes, I realize that the first Uncharted game came out in 2007. Was that like a year after Shadow of the Colossus or whatnot? But it still can illustrate my point. Like, it's noticeably more automated. You ain't got a grip gauge, you can hold on indefinitely. The first Uncharted game had, like, something where you'd have to, like, simply aim the analog stick in one direction and press the jump button, and you'll leap in that direction and automatically grab onto something if you aim right. Now, there is still room for error, so it's not like it's completely automated. You have to actually know what you're doing, and there are some swinging sections where you'll want to, like, leap off at a specific time and whatnot, but still, you do notice that it's noticeably more automated. You've noticed that it's noticeably more automated. Hooray for being redundant! Anyway, as I was saying, in the Uncharted series it's noticeably more automated, and as such, the mechanic is less interesting. It's just not really as engaging as it is in Shadow of the Colossus, because, like, the game just does a lot of the cool stuff for you, and that's not interesting. Like, you have to do the cool stuff yourself in order for it to actually mean something. There's also an enemy coming up here that you can use Din's Fire to destroy, and that's kind of cheesing, but I'll show that off just so that y'all know that it can be done. But for the future ones that we encounter, I am going to fight them legitimately. Especially because, like, the first one, it has the easiest puzzle involved in defeating it. But as I was saying, automated movement, yes. If you compare the climbing mechanic in Horizon Zero Dawn to the Uncharted series, then it's even more simplified. Because, like, you don't even got to, like, push a button for most of the climbing, because, like, then you just, like, hold the analog stick in a specific direction and you climb that way. So it's even more bare bones than the Uncharted series. You just sort of aim the analog stick in the right way, and you don't gotta worry about aiming wrong or getting the wrong directions or anything like that. So it's just pretty bare bones. Now, with that said, I am not saying that the Uncharted series is bad or anything, or that Horizon Zero Dawn is bad or anything. In fact, I love both of those. Both are amazing, in fact, and I would highly recommend them. But still, they're noticeably more simplified, and yes, I do realize that they're not the same game. That they are, in fact, quite distinct from one another. But still, it is something that does kind of bother me, that the climbing isn't as engaging. It becomes less fulfilling because of more automated movement. But the interesting thing about The Wind Waker is that it's kind of the opposite. For Twilight Princess, it actually makes the movement less automated. And I like that about it. And back on my original topic, the part of the reason that I think the controls in future Zelda games are superior in one way that I think Ocarina of Time, no, the Wind Waker improves upon Ocarina of Time is camera controls. It is really amazing to experience that, because it's like, for this game you kind of have to use some awkward solutions to like try and find out where to adjust the camera properly, that is. Again, I can't seem to speak right, but as I was saying, you have a hard time, like, getting the camera to cooperate at times, but it's usually pretty serviceable in this game, and it gets the job done. It's just kind of a nuisance at points, and the advent of 3D that this game has, that like it allows you to see things above you, this actually opens the door for a lot of spatial awareness puzzles that become a staple for the rest of the series. And these puzzles aren't spectacular, but they're still pretty neat, and I enjoy puzzle solving in the Zelda series. It's one of my favorite aspects of the series, in fact. Oh, and here's another Gold Skulltula. What was that, like 4 in this video? We're making some pretty good progress. If I'm not mistaken, that makes 87, so only 13 left. And I figured, like, since we're going to be fighting some Lizalfos, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're Lizalfoses. I may as well show off Nayru's love. We got it in the last video, so it's time to show that off. It provides a barrier, and while it will look like you're being damaged, you're actually immune. Also, you'll notice that it says MP12 next to it, whereas the other magic abilities say MP6. That indicates that it uses twice as much magic as the others. Nayru's love can actually be pretty useful against these guys. Well, I mean, it can be especially useful against some enemies that we're going to fight later on in the temple. We'll get into that more later. And that was just a simple blue rupee, kinda lame. But anyway, we're actually coming up on the end of this video, so I mean, I guess that will have to be it at the moment. So this is the Mississippi King signing out, and in the next video we'll continue the Spirit Temple. See y'all then.